Hello and welcome to the Circling the Bases podcast. My name is DJ Short and I'm back here with my co host Drew Silva. We are live on Twitch right now, so welcome to our audience there. If you're listening in podcast form, we're recording Thursday, August 18th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to tackle a bunch of headlines in this week's episode. And we have one of our favorite people to break it all down, Sarah Langs of MLB.com. It's been a while, Sarah. Welcome to the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate being here.
Yeah, it's good to have someone who is just enthusiastic and likes baseball. I was telling you guys before we hopped on that we finally have some nice weather here in St. Louis, and so I went on a really long bike ride, and I think I overdid it. So I might fall asleep on air, but Sarah's here to pick us up.
I'll do
sounds
what
good.
I can.
So I noticed a little while ago, well, Jacob deGrom's given up 2 runs so far, which feels very strange to me. But Brett Baty had another rocket that he hit, 104.2 miles per hour, single up the middle against a lefty, Max Fried. That was kind of the question with Baty was, the left on left, but he's hit the ball hard twice against a lefty so far, and of course, hit a home run in his first major league plate appearance, which was really cool to see. His parents were there, his sister was there, they're going crazy. I wasn't expecting Beatty to come up this soon, but obviously, he has a really nice swing. He hits the ball hard. Defense, a little bit of a question, but I don't know, man. He looks legit to me. I mean, obviously, it's a very small sample, but he tore up the minors this year, and we're seeing that he has that ability to make some really hard contact.
Man, I was just looking at the. Go ahead, Sarah, if you want.
No, go for it.
Well, I was just thinking like that. So I do a lot of the write-ups that we have at NBC Sports Edge, like the player news blurbs, and there have been so many guys from that 2019 draft that I've written about recently, and I think we're going to talk about a bunch of them. But if you look back at the top of that draft, Adley Rutschman was number 1, Bobby Witt Jr. number 2, Andrew Vaughn, J.J. Bleday, Riley Green, C.J. Abrams. This is in order. Nick Lodolo, Josh Young, Shea Langoliers, Alek Manoah, Brett Baty, Bryson Stott, George Kirby. It's like, and you could even, that's when Michael Harris II got drafted, and we're going to talk about him. It's an unbelievable, it's going to like go down in history. I mean, it's a little bit early to say that, but it's going to go down in history as like one of the most fruitful drafts talent wise. And I've, not to get away from the Beatty discussion, but I've been like toying with the idea of, so these guys get drafted in June 2019, and then none of them played professional baseball in 2020. Do you think there's something there to like there being a gap year? Like these kids play baseball their entire lives, and then they get to not actually have to go through I'm sure they're working out hard, but the rigors of like traveling an entire baseball season. We saw it with Buster Posey. He came back roaring last year after sitting out the 2020 season. I haven't come to any conclusions, but it would kind of make sense, like just physically and there's no way to like actually plan this into a guy's career. You don't really want them to have a gap year, but I'm sure that kind of benefited some of these guys in a way. I don't know.
I feel like that's a thing with all athletes. I mean, my mom, who is a huge sports fan, is always texting me out her idea of time off. You look at even tennis players like Roger Federer. Now he hasn't played in a while, but he had a period where he was injured, came back, was really good. Similar with a Rafael Nadal, whoever else. And I mean, I do think there could be something to that. The other thing is some of these guys were at the alternate site. So they may have gotten the chance to kind of learn from their peers, and also those who are maybe a couple, rungs ahead of them in development while not dealing with travel and everything else. So that could be part of it too.
Yeah, and during that time, they could have focused on a certain area of their game. We saw that with Tyler McGill, added a lot of velocity that year, and not a lot of people knew it because he didn't really have any eyes on him. So some of these players came out of that year with maybe their body's a little bit different. Maybe they worked out more and added muscle. Maybe they changed their setup and their swing. There's so much that we kind of really didn't know that happened during that year. I mean, the players that Drew mentioned, like they were drafted to be, impact players. And so far, that's been the case. I think it's a combination of raw talent, but also, we see players make adjustments all the time.
Yeah, the ability to like just build your body and, like you said, focus on individual things without having to worry about taking real at bats or like making real pitching appearances. There's probably again, there's no way to actually like, implement this into like a regular baseball season where the world is a little bit back to normal. Back to Baty though, like what do you think he stays? What do you think the plan is here? It's not like they have,
Eduardo Escobar has an oblique thing.
Yeah.
He expects to return when he's eligible, but he hasn't had a great year.
Mhm.
And he was essentially being platooned with Luis Guillorme, who is now hurt. So I think there will still be a chance that Baty can keep his role, and if he hits, he's gonna stay. They'll find playing time for him. But to kind of bring it back to the body discussion, so this morning on MLB Central, there was a really good segment with Mark DeRosa and Sean Casey breaking down Baty's swing. And one thing that Mark DeRosa mentioned was like he was comparing like the high school version of Baty with the minor, I think it was a minor league clip. But either way, he was a lot thicker in high school and he's more like wiry now. So like you're growing into your body, and he also, I guess, wanted to be more agile to play third base, to prove he could stay at third. So I thought that was really interesting. And also earlier tonight, Keith Hernandez, he gave sort of like the badge of honor to Brett Baty, saying how beautiful his swing is. And he also said that he thinks the swing is better than Christian Yelich's swing when he was at the top of his game, which is incredibly high praise. I'm not sure about that, but
They have similar body types, right?
Yeah,
They do.
I kind of see that
Yeah.
visually. Like I can see why he was thinking of Yelich.
Yeah, Gary Cohen brought up Yelich because they do have that wiry kind of frame. I think Baty is 6'5".
Is he that
6'4".
big? Wow.
I think he's pretty tall. I'm just guessing based off what I think I know, but he's pretty tall. He's pretty wiry too. So I could see that comp coming out there. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But only a couple of days, but I've been impressed with what I've seen. I've also been impressed by Franmil Reyes. Kind of interesting to see the Guardians turn the page on him. I think we talked about this last week, Drew, when the Guardians DFA'd him. He's been bad. He struck out about, I think, 36% of the time for the Guardians this year, but had another 2-hit game this afternoon for the Cubs. He's now hitting .382 with the Cubs, has an 8-game hitting streak, 5 multi-hit games, 6 extra base hits. Sarah, what do you think of what we've seen from Reyes so far? I mean, we know he has the power. I thought the Cubs, made a nice gamble here to see if they could get something out of Reyes. But what are you thinking here with Reyes in this small sample?
Yeah, I mean, he told reporters, I believe it was yesterday, to the question of change of scenery, he basically leaned into it. And he said, yeah, I got this new chance. It's a new me. I'm paraphrasing, but he said along those lines. And I think he's the type of player who's also, introspective enough to really understand that and see that and capitalize on it. And as you said, we know the power is there. I mean, he is a StatCast darling when he is on, when he is peak Franmil. So I'm inclined to say that, he's not going to hit in the 300s. But I think, maybe. But I could see him sort of resurrecting his career here, being a, 250-ish hitter with power. And that would be great, really great to see.
I mean, we kind of broke the Reyes news down, but just turned 27 years old. Like, this guy is not done. He had a 37 homer season in the past. He hit 30 homers last year too, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I get why the Guardians felt like it was time to move on. This was a very bad year for him, and they have some young guys that they want to get at bats to.
Yeah.
But he's totally capable of writing a second chapter. And there's a lot of swing and miss. Talk about like physicality and being built. Like he is a NFL edge rusher. Like he is.
Yeah.
He could play outside linebacker in the NFL. He's a massive person. And there are some holes in his swing, but when the goods are good, like they're really good. And I think the change of scenery thing it's not tangible. There's no way to like quantify it, but we've seen it work for other players. I think people as human beings, when you get out of a situation where you were frustrated and not feeling comfortable, and you get to kind of turn the page on that psychologically, I think we've all been in situations like that, not in on a Major League Baseball field, but it's nice to kind of like wipe the slate clean and get back to doing what you do well. And I think that's probably what we're seeing here.
Yeah, I think what the Cubs really are doing here is they're deciding if they want to tender him a contract. It's kind of like he's auditioning for next year's team, and there's something here at stake for Reyes too, because if he does stay with the Cubs and he's tendered a contract, he gets that raise through arbitration. Whereas if he went into free agency, maybe he would stand to make less. So I think both sides have some incentive here to make this work. Also wanted to talk about two players who I think are showing signs of progress here. I guess we'll see. Max Muncie, for one. He didn't have a hit today, I don't believe, but he's hitting 320 this month. I know he's had that elbow thing all season basically, which understandable is going to hinder his production. But I was looking at average exit velocity over the past month, and Muncie is up there for sure, which I guess we don't have a lot of data to suggest if someone's like feeling good. Like a player will say all the time, I feel great. But when you see that average exit velocity go up, you got to think that's a good sign, right?
Especially with a guy who has hit the ball hard in the past,
Yeah.
And I think, we're not doctors and we can't directly correlate what's going on to an injury. But I do think when you think of the elbow, when you think of a swing, you can really see how if you're kind of bracing for impact, trying to avoid, it's sore, something like that, you can see how that would lead to less power in that contact moment. So it's exactly what I was going to say with Muncie is he's hitting the ball harder. And I think that's evidence that he is really back. And he's had the plate discipline all year, up there and walk rate all season. So he's still him, he hasn't lost his way. I think the swing is just fully back now.
Yeah, I think the slow start, you could blame it on injuries. He's had a couple different nagging things, definitely the elbow at the forefront, but the track record's there, nearly a 900 OPS between 2018 and 2021. And that includes 2020, where he wasn't very good during the shortened season. He's 32 years old, but I think he's got some good years left in him. And I never really doubted that he would kind of figure it out. Maybe it would take until next year for him to bounce back physically, but it's good to see him doing it right now, as if the Dodgers like needed another weapon,
Speaking of one though, Joey Gallo.
Yeah.
And we're talking about change of scenery with Franmil Reyes, but Joey Gallo is another one. Just given the quotes that he had in his last days in New York, which seemed like that was a nightmare experience for him, even to walk on the street, which is just sad. Mostly, even putting the baseball part aside, but getting a fresh start there with the Dodgers and a kind of more of a laid back atmosphere. Certainly the expectations are high, but it's less pressure and much more laid back out there. He was hitless today, so the average is down to 231, but he also has 12 strikeouts and 26 at bats. But that's Gallo for you. 3 homers and a double as well. We know he's not going to win batting titles, but I mean, when he's right, he's going to hit for power. He's going to hit the ball hard. He's a good defender as well. And certainly given Cody Bellinger's struggles, I mean, I think there's opportunity here for Gallo.
Yeah, and I feel like when the Dodgers got him, I mean, it was him and then the Giants getting JD Davis, which were the two moments of the deadline where you were like, if any team can fully, get the most out of this guy, it's that team with that player, like respectively. And, I mean, I was on a show on SNY last night where someone said, what frustrates Yankee fans more, Dodger Gallo or Yankee Gallo? And there is something to be said for the fact that Yankee fans are definitely noticing. But, I think that Yankee fans or people who are inclined to be that way, notwithstanding, I think Joey Gallo really endeared himself to people with that story, especially the one in The Athletic with Lindsay Adler. I mean, we don't often see players, especially once we're struggling in that way, be so human, and I'd always had this sense he was a really good guy. But to have that, for him to be so open about that, I mean, I had so many friends who aren't Yankees fans who saw those quotes on Twitter and were like, oh my gosh, I am rooting for this guy wherever he ends up next. So you really have to hope for him that he continues to be kind of figuring it out.
Yeah, I remember the stories of, Steven Gerrard, like the great Liverpool football soccer player. And he spent some time in LA. I don't think he played for their MLS team, but maybe just spent some time over there hanging out. And he's a massive star in England and in, all of Europe. And maybe it's different for a baseball player, but he loved living in LA because he could go to the grocery store or like go out to eat and no one would bother him. And maybe Gallo is really enjoying that. Hats off to Yankees fans for being really intense. It's awesome. I always laugh about how Yankees fans, if you just followed the Yankees on Twitter, you would think they're in last place like the entire season.
Especially this month.
Yeah, I know. We're getting to the point where I kind of feel their pain. But they are still in first place. But
I was actually looking something up earlier today. So the Yankees are hitting 220 as a team this month. So Joey Gallo is hitting 231. So
I'm also enjoying Cardinal Jordan Montgomery more than I enjoyed Yankee Jordan Montgomery. He looks, man, he is just perfect for Busch Stadium, and you can tell because of the dimensions, like not fans or anything, just a big stadium where it's really hard to hit home runs. For him in that arsenal, like he's got 4 great pitches. He's using his 4-seamer like 20% more than he was with the Yankees, because you have to think about that right field wall, or really just the dimensions in general. And at Busch, you don't. And so he can attack hitters more. He has been exactly what the doctor ordered for the Cardinals.
Yeah. And I guess it's frustrating for Yankees fans because they haven't seen Harrison Bader yet.
And Frankie Montas was getting lit up again tonight, I think.
But Bader, I mean, I think Bader's a pretty exciting player, and he can play some defense, man. And I think they need that in center field. Aaron Hicks is not.
I'd be worried about plantar fasciitis with Bader's skill set, but I am a Bader believer. I think I was higher on him than most Cardinals fans because, he's an elite defensive center fielder, and I think there's offensive upside there. And maybe
he's such a fun player.
Yeah,
I mean, it's such a great personality to put in New York, and of course, he's from the area, so there's that part too. But I mean, I remember him mic'd up on Sunday Night Baseball earlier this year. He's just one of those fun guys. So I know there were a lot of questions when that trade happened. And obviously, with what Montgomery's done, and the fact that they haven't seen Bader, I know that some fans are restless, but that's the kind of defense that can really help you in October. So assuming they get, to that moment with him healthy, that's huge.
They're going to love him eventually. I think he's going to really flourish there. If not this year, then next year.
My advice for Harrison Bader is to get some Crocs. It'll solve your plantar fasciitis. I have suffered from it. I'm not a pro athlete though. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Those are my camo Crocs that my wife loves.
I have just navy blue. Mine are boring.
Question.
Yeah.
Like, when did they come back? I remember they were a thing when I was like in middle school, and then I know I see them now, but I don't know anything about baseball, so I have no idea like when they came back.
I don't know that either. I'm not on top of the fashion scene, but
I feel like the past couple of years,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've seen like more teens wearing them, which means I guess they're cool. And some like kids who are like, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, they'll put like little I
Yeah.
don't know what it's
They
called, but
have a
it's like
name for them, but yeah.
I forgot the name for it. See,
Flare, Croc
I'm not
Flare.
cool.
They
Yeah.
were a thing, like kind of ironically when they first came out, and I was a freshman in college. Like a bunch of dudes got them. First of all, because they're really comfortable to like walk to class in.
Yeah.
And then they were so comfortable that a lot of me and some of my friends, we would just wear them all the time because like who cares what you look like in college?
In college, yeah.
Yeah. But now I got these as like a joke gift at Christmas 5 years ago. And I wear them all the time around the house. At least I don't usually wear them out too much.
I don't either. I'm not that cool. All right, we'll get to some more
Sorry,
baseball stuff in a
everyone.
second. No. I welcome that. That's no problem. So quick word for our listeners. Weekends are better with MLB Sunday leadoff coverage presented by Uber Eats. Catch the White Sox take on the Guardians in Cleveland this Sunday. Big series there. This Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, live on Peacock. To learn more, go to peacocktv.com/MLB. And if you want a chance to win $25,000 on the game, download NBC Sports Predictor app powered by PointsBet and enter Sunday's free Grand Slam Pick'em contest. And just a reminder, if you don't have the Predictor app powered by PointsBet, definitely go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play. You can win thousands. We just mentioned that with the baseball game here, but also PGA Tour, NASCAR, Premier League. We have a special contest every Tuesday and Thursday. We do Battle of the Bets, where you can agree or disagree with our picks. So lots of fun stuff on the Predictor app. Definitely check that out. So a couple of young catchers we wanted to talk about here. Joey Bart, first off here, he's been tearing it up recently. I know he struggled to begin the year to kind of be that replacement for Buster Posey, was striking out a ton, but some really good signs here recently. I think he's hitting over 400 recently, showing some good power. Has this correlated in terms of like what we want to see as far as power metrics, Sarah?
I think so. I mean, he has been exactly who people hoped he would be. When they drafted a catcher, everyone freaked out. Are they replacing Posey? Because at the time, Posey was still in the peak of his career. He has been that Joey Bart. And for a Giant season that has not had a whole lot of upside, Carlos Rodon, really good. Logan Webb has been good minus today. This has just been a really big bright spot for them. And, I think of the moment where he hit the hardest hit homer by any Giant, tracked by StatCast on Will Clark Day. He and Will Clark were both drafted second overall, the two highest draft picks in Giants history. That felt like a moment to me, like beyond stats, beyond anything else. And I think that, I'm interested to see where he ends up defensively. I think there were still always some questions there, and we can't really split those metrics in the same way. But I think he has shown that he hasn't been bad. And so he has shown that he can be that everyday catcher moving forward. And that's a really good starting point for them, just, for the next few years as they kind of try to rebuild what this team is.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure on Joey Bart being the successor to Buster Posey. But like all the minor league numbers, the draft pedigree, being the number 2 overall pick in 2018, it would all tell you like this guy's gonna be something, and it takes a while sometimes for catchers to really click. He's 25 years old, has had a lot of starts and stops, ups and downs, kind of thrown into the fire when Posey sat out the 2020 season, like we talked about earlier. I think there's just a lot of pressure on him, and yeah, maybe that moment where he hit that heater of a home run like takes some weight off his shoulders, and he can just be Joey Bart. And it doesn't have to try to be Buster Posey. I had him as a top 10 fantasy catcher coming into the year. Man, the catcher position is so bad that I wonder if he had like a good final 7 weeks, if he could actually finish as a top 10. Probably not, but he might have like the homers to rank up there. He's got 9 right now. If he, if he hits a couple more, he'll be in the running for it at least. And yeah, I mean, the batting average that you saw in the minors, the on base percentage, if he can carry some of that over with a little power, I think he can be a very good catcher, real life catcher, fantasy catcher. We'll see defensively how that all shakes out, but I'm still optimistic about Joey Bart long term.
Yeah, I mean, it like you said, Sarah, it's kind of been a disappointing year for the Giants on the whole, not able to replicate what they did last year. I think we all saw a little bit of regression coming, but certainly a bright sign here with Bart to carry them into 2023 and beyond. So I think that's great news. And, like you're saying, with catcher being as weird as it is this year from a fantasy perspective, I think that Cal Raleigh leads all catchers in home runs right now with 18 or 19. Yeah, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, where's Salvador Perez when you need him?
Yeah. Well, and Jonah Heim is a top 10 fantasy catcher right now as well.
Yeah.
Catcher is always such a weird one. Like entering the year, I do top 10 by position from MLB Network, and I had Adley number 10, having never played in the majors before, because I talked to some of our prospect people, and I figured, okay, as long as he's up by like June or July, I think a couple months of Adley, this was thinking at that point, is probably better than most of the field, at least for my 8, 9, 10. And thinking to my rankings next year, not with fantasy involved, but just overall, I mean, he's going to be, he's all the way up there. I mean, it's him and Will Smith at this point. Yeah.
Man, this position has needed an injection of young talent. I feel like we've been waiting for it for a while.
It's going to be there. There's so many good prospect catchers right now.
Francisco Alvarez, Shea Langoliers has hit the ground running in Oakland.
Montero with the Blue Jays. I mean, there are a lot of good catching prospects out there. But go ahead and with Langoliers. I mean, I know he was part of the Matt Olson trade, was like kind of the big piece there for the A's. So at least A's fans get to see part of the return there.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he's looked tremendous, and he's a guy that it seems like the A's, maybe just because they're terrible and like they're just releasing players on the fly. Piscotty and Elvis Andrus this week. He's going to get time at DH too. I mean, like, from a fantasy perspective, you like players like that, like a Salvador Perez, who is going to be in the lineup most days. He's not going to be like a normal catcher who's going to get 2 days off per week, or hopefully that's the way it shakes out. I can't imagine the A's are going to be a whole lot better next year. So you love the situation, and the minor league numbers are there. He's shown a ton of raw power already right away, and he's a dude who can get on base and hit for average too. I think he's the real deal. Is he going to be like a top 10 catcher next year? Possibly. That's a position that I'm going to have to like dig in when we do our like positional preview episodes next year. I'm going to have to like learn some new things about a lot of these players and about who's coming up. There's a lot right on the cusp, which is pretty exciting as well. And let's get into Adley Rutschman for a second, because he's been so good. I mean, I think the first 2 weeks he kind of struggled offensively, but since then, like, he's been exactly what we expected him to be and what everyone said he was. The plate discipline, the ability to hit the ball hard, and also just a very good catcher. He's already shown to be a great framer. Pitchers love working with him. I mean, he's exceeded my expectations for an Orioles team, which continues to hang around there in the wild card race as well.
I mean, I think that's a lot of it. You see his intangibles. You see the way he is carrying this pitching staff, and the fact that he is a good catcher and that guys like working with him, but also the fact that you see the emotion on his face in so many plays. I mean, to me, that is like the portrait of a young, impactful catcher. So it's been really great to see. And, I know people talk about Rookie of the Year, and we have pretty much, I mean, first we gave it to Jeremy Pena, then he got hurt, then we gave it to Julio, then he got hurt for a bit. And now it feels like a pretty close race between these two. I mean, it's interesting because Julio's team is probably going to make the postseason for the first time since '01. He's going to be a big part of it. But if the Orioles even finish, I don't know, a game out of a postseason spot, that's almost enough of a victory, like in the long run, that maybe you give credit to Adley there too. And of course, Rookie of the Year is the award that I think people consider team success the least. And, if I were voting on these, I would consider team success 0. But I do think with a young catcher, it does kind of reflect on him in a really good way that the team has continued to gel at this point after the trades. No Trey Mancini, no Jorge Lopez, and here they are. So, I mean, but, debate aside, he's been so good. I mean, he's 11th in the majors in WRC plus since June 15th, and everyone else on that list is like Judge, Arenado, Freddie Freeman, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I mean, he's like the captain of that team at age 24, and what goes into being a catcher. It's so much more involved than what goes into being an outfielder. I think that race is too close to call, and we should let it play out before we have debates on it.
Julio's still the big favorite. Like, I was looking at the odds earlier today. So
he is.
I mean, if you wanted to take a shot, I think of any like kind of underdog dark horse for an individual award, like Rushman would be the guy that I would target right now for sure.
Bobby Witt, I mean, he needs to kind of be in that conversation too. He's been really, really good, and it's because he plays for the Royals. Not a lot of people have talked about him because they're just kind of an afterthought right now. But he's been tremendous.
Yeah, he's been good.
I think he's met expectations. I mean, like counting stats wise, at least. And he's been a little more consistent over the last 2 months too. So I don't know.
Another rookie here who might be one of the favorites with Spencer Strider in the NL for Rookie of the Year, Michael Harris, the second. His extension with the Braves, I don't have the actual number in front of me right now.
8 years, $72 million guaranteed. Yep. It can work out to be a 10-year, $102 million if the options are exercised. Pretty team friendly on the surface. I think he's really, really good, and so I think he probably left some money on the table, but I actually didn't know until that extension was signed how tied in he is to like the Atlanta community. Like he grew up there. He is a total Atlanta dude.
Yeah.
The Braves love to do that. They love to target those guys from the local area. So it makes sense.
I think that's where he wants to be, and good for him. Like $72 million guaranteed is excellent. He really only gave up 2 years of free agency.
Yeah.
Is that the way that works out?
How old is he, by the way? Because he could
He's
still
21.
21,
right.
Yeah.
So he could still hit free agency at 29 or third, like still in an area where he could have a nice second contract, depending on how things pan out.
He's probably going to win a Gold Glove. I mean, he is having that kind of year, and I really like his bat. He hits the ball really hard. And he's another guy like Adley, like Bobby Witt as well, who did not hit in his first 2 weeks in the majors. And I think a lot of people are like, okay, he's here for his defense. And then since then, he's hit a handful of home runs. He's had some clutch hits for them. And again, he hits the ball hard, which for me is all I need to see to know, this is for real. And he's so much fun to watch. I mean, yeah.
He's a great player, great style too. He had a cool hat on during his press conference.
He did. And what's interesting about Harris is he's just so relaxed defensively in center field. I've seen the Mets play the Braves a bunch in the past couple of weeks, and there's been some drives to center field where I'm like, oh, this is going to be extra bases, but he's so quick He just has that closing speed to make these catches and just looking so relaxed and casual for someone with so little experience in the majors. It's pretty impressive.
I think it's easy to forget too that the Braves, when they called him up in late May, they were not doing well. They're one of the top 5 teams in baseball right now. I think anyone would say that. But he really injected some maybe calmness and excitement and a little bit of new blood for a team that went to the World Series, like had a very long season last year. And just his presence in center field really changed the way that the outfield dynamics work. They don't have to put players in center that don't belong there anymore. They've got their long-term center fielder.
And Vaughn Grissom has brought something to that team too in the past couple of weeks. And I've been impressed by him. And he's another player who brings some emotion to the game as well.
He's also a 2019 draft guy.
Oh, wow. There you go. There's another one. And it would be a nice problem from the Braves when Ozzie Albies comes back and like, where do we put Vaughn Grissom? We'll see what happens, but so far, even in the, the small sample I've seen in this Mets series, he's looked really good and he looks like he belongs.
Yeah, I feel like they've just put together a great young core.
I'm
we all
jealous.
saw. Yeah,
how do they do it?
Team should be, but I think that part of it is Alex Anthopoulos and the trust that he gets from these players, because I think a lot of people and a lot of fans are sitting there after that extension saying, why don't we do this with so-and-so? Why didn't the Mets do this with Pete Alonso? Why didn't, any other team? And this isn't any disrespect to them, to any team. But the Braves have really built the type of culture where guys feel comfortable there and want to be there. They trust the front office, and they know that if they do this, it's going to go well for them. And, any team in baseball could do this tomorrow. But I'm not sure that any team in baseball's 21-year-old budding superstar would be as willing to stay there for the next 10 years.
Yep.
Right.
Agreed.
Exactly. Yeah, they have the secret sauce right now, and I am jealous as a Mets fan. I will admit that. But the Mets have Steve Cohen, who doesn't mind spending a a extra if he
That's another route, right?
Yeah. You can just buy championships, DJ.
Yes. Hey, it feels good. Well, we got to get the championship first before I can actually.
I know nothing feels that good right now.
No. So I wanted to talk about the Yankees again and their closer situation. So Clay Holmes, who's for a great majority of the season was just fantastic. He struggled a bit recently, and he's been dealing with this back injury, which I think explains some of the recent struggles. So he's sidelined now. You have Aroldis Chapman, who I don't think is all the way back yet. And I don't know if they're going to throw him right back in the mix in the 9th inning. We'll see. Lou Trevino, who they acquired from the A's in that Frankie Montas deal. Scott Efros, who they got from the Cubs, who kind of I thought was a really clever trade at the deadline. A pitcher with a lot of control, team control rather, who's had a great year. Wandy Peralta's there maybe for some matchups, but I think if I had to pick one from like a fantasy perspective right now, I would take Scott Efros. That's just my gut feel right now.
I think he's worth rostering. It'll probably be a mix and match situation.
Yeah.
I think Chapman would be my number one, but he's already rostered in every fantasy league. I know that he had that rough outing. What was it on Wednesday against the Rays? But the Yankees wound up winning that game, and otherwise he's
all
thrown.
Is forgiven, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think otherwise he's been pretty steady since he came back from the injured list from that Achilles tendon issue. He's not as dominant as he was in the past, but I still think he's a presence on the mound and he has some experience. I bet that he would get the majority of save chances while Clay Holmes is away. And Holmes had been kind of knocked around lately too. I guess this back injury had been lingering though for a couple of weeks, so maybe that helps to explain some of it.
Yeah. Last thing before before we go here, I don't want to take too much of your time, Sarah, but last thing here, the Rangers I wanted to get into. They turned the page on John Daniels this week after a really long tenure for a front office executive these days. Like Brian Cashman is, what is it? He's been like 30 years or something with the Yankees now, but John Daniels, 17-year tenure there with the Rangers. Recent years, Chris Young's been the GM, I believe, the past 2 years, and John Daniels has moved more into that team president type of role. But still, I thought this was interesting. I think maybe after signing Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, John Gray, ownership had certain expectations associated with that. But I think even going into the year, if you looked at any predictions, prognostications, whatever, nobody had the Rangers making the playoffs. So where is the disconnect here? Because I think they were a flawed team from the jump. So am I missing something, or is it just like time for new voices?
I would guess that it's something along those lines. I mean, to your point, their pitching acquisition was John Gray, who has been hurt about 3 times this year, I think, but even still was not going to be the ace, especially in that ballpark, to really carry those offensive acquisitions. I was surprised in the offseason that they didn't find some money to get a bigger name pitcher or make a trade there.
Yep.
But I agree. I mean, they've been about what I expected, I think. But I do wonder if the expectations were more in line with the total money spent than where it was allocated or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's a weird one because I think they're exactly who I kind of thought they would be. And I thought that the Seager and Semien signings were kind of stage one of like moving from rebuilder into contender. It wasn't, and I thought that they would have known it's not going to happen right away because you don't have the pitching and there's still a lot of holes on this roster. The press conference with, I just kind of had it on in the background. I think that was on Wednesday. Yeah, like the afternoon that they fired John Daniels. And it was the owner or the chairman or something was asked a question, like a baseball operation specific question. And he was like, I don't really know anything about baseball. That's why I like hire people to do this job. And so maybe he thought like, maybe I don't know his background. Maybe he's some Texas oil man. This is just in my head, but like you throw a $500 million at a problem's going to be fixed, but like, no, baseball, you need 26 players, or you really need like 40 players to become, you need depth, you need stars, you need pitching. And the Rangers just did not have all of the pieces. Yeah. John Daniels was hired in 2005, which was my freshman year of college when I got my first pair of Crocs. And just to wrap up the show into a nice little bow, I'm still wearing Crocs 17 years later.
But I'll be fascinated to see where John Daniels goes next, because he is a New York guy. And the Mets were interested in the Brewers team president, Stearns, David Stearns, who was a New York guy. I don't know. I think things are going well with the Mets right now, but I wonder if there's something's revisited there. John Daniels has been mentioned as a possibility for the Mets for a really long time. Could we see a different kind of front office structure there? Sandy Alderson is really still involved more from a team president perspective, but more on the business side than the baseball operations side. But did they change that structure? I mean, I think John Daniels is going to go somewhere. He's he's had a lot of success, but I think it'll be interesting to follow that. And I guess maybe to see what the Rangers do during the offseason as well with Chris Young.
Yeah, I don't. Are they going to start from scratch? Like, I don't get it. But
I mean, those contracts aren't going anywhere.
No, they're not.
I don't think. No. But getting Josh Young, another prospect who we hope to see soon.
2019 draft. Yep.
Yeah, there's another one. We're full circle with the show. I think I saw you tweet out something earlier today, Drew, about Josh Young and what's going on with his rehab.
Well, yeah, they who was it? The interim manager, Tony Beasley, was saying that his MLB debut is not imminent, and he's been ridiculous in the minors. If you look at his numbers, like an .833 slugging percentage and 62 plate appearances, 8 home runs in 15 games. I wonder if they're just going to kind of wait on this because there's no point in bringing him up. Like, are we going to play a little service time game? I don't know. It could be a week from now. He's coming off labrum shoulder surgery, a really big time procedure. So maybe it's smart to kind of slow play it. If the Rangers were in the race, he would be up, but they're not. So there's no way to estimate when we're going to see him. I don't know.
Sarah, we're gonna wrap it up here. But thank you so much for coming on the show this week. We really appreciate your insight, and hopefully we'll get you back here soon.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
If you like what you're hearing with this show, make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review if you don't mind. 5 stars, always appreciated. Follow us on Twitter if you don't already. I'm at DJ Short and Drew is at Drew Silv. Take care, everyone, and we will see you next time.